So 4 defeats on the bounce for Liverpool, and surely they're going to win one eventually, right? Well, we hope it's going to come on Wednesday when they travel to face Eintracht Frankfurt in the Champions League. And there's just no getting away from the fact that this is an absolutely massive game for Liverpool. Obviously, those 4 consecutive defeats, the latest of those coming against Manchester United at Anfield, so a particularly painful one. And the fact is, they just need to get not just a result here, but I also think a performance to give people belief that this is a side that's going to challenge for major honours. Because, of course, if the poor results keep coming in, then they're going to be way off the pace in the Champions League. Arsenal are going to just keep extending the lead in the Premier League. So you can basically kind of throw away any hopes of winning a trophy at this early stage if you keep getting consecutive bad results. But also performance-wise, even when Liverpool were winning this season, there were some red flags, weren't there? I don't think it's all bad, which I think is kind of been spoke about and suggested recently, is that every aspect of those performances was poor. I don't actually believe that, but you can go either way when you're showing good and bad signs in your early performances, and it feels like Liverpool have fallen towards all the bad things happening, and of course the results have then taken a turn. So they just need to start performing as a collective. You need to see, something that will convince you that this side is going to click, and as I say, is actually going to be capable of challenging for major honours despite all that turnover in the summer. So it's just a really, really important game, this one, of course, followed by a trip to Brentford as well, which is starting to look really tricky. So Liverpool really, they need to get a win. They need to get some confidence. They need to show that this side can click and can perform together, or it's all going to be all over pretty quickly this season. So I'm going to start with, yes, a bit of analysis here, but also I'm going to start with some news and just deliver some news from open training, which of course was taking part this afternoon. Now, I wasn't able to get down to the training ground, too busy today, unfortunately, but I will bring you the news from that training session. Start with the goalkeepers who came out first. Of course, we expected this, but no Alisson Becker involved yet. When the manager was asked about this ahead of Manchester United, he said he was going to miss the Manchester United game, the Eintracht Frankfurt game, and then we'll see after that. So maybe he might be in contention soon, but this last part of his rehabilitation, quite difficult to judge. So not exactly something you can hang your hat on, but maybe he will be back soon, but not involved today. One man who was involved, who missed out on the Manchester United game, is Wataru Endo. I reported recently he had tight hamstrings. Obviously, they didn't subside quickly enough to get him involved against United, but he did train today, which is good news in terms of boosting the midfield options. And another midfielder who was involved today was Alexis. Of course, he sustained that head injury that he had to have stitches on against United, but he was involved today. He didn't have that funny headgear on as well, so it looks like he's going to be okay to play. But of course, there was some bad news in this training session, which was no sign of Ryan Gravenberch. Of course, he injured his ankle, didn't he, in the game on Sunday, and doesn't look like he's going to be ready for this one. The manager did say after the United game that Gravenberch looked a bit of a doubt. We'll kind of see how he goes in terms of his recovery, and I would say him not being involved in the open training here is a decent sign that he's probably not going to make the trip out to Germany, and there's basically no getting away from the fact that that is a massive blow. But of course we wait, maybe Slot will give us some really positive news, and maybe he's just doing an individual session and that will come out in the press conference, but I don't particularly hold out hope for that. Now I'm going to move into picking my starting 11 for this. I say picking my starting 11. It's a combination of an 11 I'd like to see and an 11 that I think is probably likely to be picked, and what Slot will probably go with. And I will start, as I always do, with the goalkeeper, Mamardashvili. Of course, he has to start in the absence of Allister. I think he's been decent when he's come in, but maybe some question marks around the Brian Mbeumo goal early in that game on Sunday. I think he could have done better. It felt like one of those that, watching it from the press box, you're a little bit surprised it goes in, because when Alisson's there, it probably doesn't, but don't want to be overly critical. And I think, by and large, his contributions have been pretty good since he's come in, and of course, he will definitely start this one. And moving into the defence, at right back, I've made a change here. I've gone with Jeremy Frimpong. I've spoken about, I think, there is a need to kind of build those relationships at the back, try and have some consistency. But your only worry at right back is that Bradley is incredibly injury prone, isn't he? And you don't want to make him play 3 games in a week. So I think you need to have some rotation and acknowledge that Bradley does pick up injuries. So I wouldn't mind seeing a change here. And I also think, look, Frimpong was good when he came on against United, wasn't he? I thought obviously he was more advanced position playing on the wing, but you like to think that's where you're going to get him in games anyway, because Liverpool will be dominant on the ball and be able to push the opposition back. So that's why I've gone with Frimpong at right back. In terms of the centre-halves, no surprises here. I think you've got to keep playing the Konate and Virgil van Dijk duo there, really, because, you know, Konate, I think he's had a bit of an up and down season so far, but I think most of his problems actually have been on the ball and Liverpool's problems in build-up. So defensively, I didn't think he was too bad against United at all. And I think Liverpool have just got to give him more help when he's isolated in possession. Of course, Van Dijk will definitely start. He's the captain. That's pretty obvious that he is going to be in there. And so I'll move quickly onto left back, where I've gone with Milos Kerkez. And I have to say with Kerkez, it's an interesting one. It's some incredibly harsh things said about him in the aftermath of the United game, and generally actually about his start to his Liverpool career. Kind of talk about like he's useless or a bad signing, and I just wonder sometimes, am I watching a different game to everybody else? Because people talk about him like he's kind of getting torn to shreds completely, and you just aren't seeing that. Not just in the numbers where he's kind of really good in terms of winning duels, winning tackles, but I just don't see him get beat very often. Now, you're going to get beat from time to time as a fullback. That will absolutely happen to you up against really good wingers. But I don't think that's happening often at all. I don't think he's, I've seen comparisons to Alberto Moreno, who defensively wasn't very strong at all. I don't see that. I think Kerkez's biggest problem so far for me is that he's looked uncomfortable taking the ball in deep positions. Well, surprise, because that's not what he ever did at Bournemouth. He wasn't asked to be involved in build-up. He was asked to arrive in the final third as an option there and get up and down that wing. He's not the guy who's going to give you cute passes inside. So stop using him like that, because no wonder he looks pretty uncomfortable. He's never done it in his career. So I'd like the manager to kind of solve that problem and do something about Liverpool's build-up to make it easier for Kerkez, because he can look uncomfortable there, and that's where he's kind of most difficult moments have come from, is in possession deep in the Liverpool third. So I don't want him to be doing that anymore. But like I say, that's not his fault. His profile is his profile. He is what he is as a player. So Liverpool have got to use his strengths and not use him in build-up in that way, or he will look daft. He will have difficult moments. So yeah, for me, I think some of the criticisms are incredibly harsh. I think he's done pretty well really so far, particularly as, by the way, he's 21 years old. He will get better in all aspects of the game as well. So yeah, for me, he has to start this one and keep him going and hopefully get the best out of him. Now, moving into midfield now, obviously there's a bit of a problem there with no Ryan Gravenberch, and it's a tough pick, this one, because obviously there are issues elsewhere in that midfield. I don't really want to go with Endo. He's just come back. I think he's not good enough in build-up for what Liverpool need at the moment. And so I've gone with Alexis McAllister. Now, that might come as a surprise because, let's be honest, his form has been pretty awful so far this season. But maybe you just have to play him through it. And I think I would have dropped him for this one, to be honest. But with no Gravenberch there, I think you need a progressive passer in that deep position. And I think McAllister does give you that. I would have liked to actually have seen him get in deeper positions a lot more in the United game to pick the ball up, to help the centre-halves. So deploying him in that role, although it's not alongside Gravenberch, I think makes sense in this game, and hopefully his form just starts to turn, because I think his biggest problem against United is he couldn't touch the ball because he was too advanced, and I thought it was a strange pick from the manager really. So hopefully if he's a little bit deeper here, he can be a bit more influential. And alongside him, I've picked Dominic Szoboszlai as well in that midfield. I think for me, he's up there as one of Liverpool's best players so far this season. You need his legs in every game. Don't want to see him farmed out to right back. He's very important in midfield, so want to see him start in his preferred position in this one. And my third midfielder that I've picked is Curtis Jones. Now, for me, he has to play at the moment. I think Liverpool need him in build-up. He's able to drop in, help out. You see in so many games he drops into that left-back area, which would allow Kerkez to push up in build-up. He's so comfortable in the ball. He wins his duels. And he's actually, Liverpool, statistically, their most progressive passer so far this season. So for a team that is struggling to get the ball from back to front, it's a no-brainer. And I think, sometimes when you have situations where the team is playing poorly, I see comments and stuff on social media, you've got to change it, you've got to put this player in, just get that player out the team. And a lot of it's kind of changes for change's sake. Just thinking, well, we just roll the dice and see what happens. But this isn't a pick for that, because I think every time Curtis Jones has been on the pitch for Liverpool so far this season, he's looked very, very good. And the manager needs to recognise that for me. And he needs to recognise it in this game. And I think McAllister, Szoboszlai, Jones, in the absence of Gravenberch and a really natural number 6, that's a really solid midfield base if everybody plays to the potential. And I think Jones, like I say, really helps you out and build up as well. So I wouldn't even mind him seeing him as the deepest maybe of the 3, or certainly like a McAllister and Jones as a 2 alongside each other to really help out in build up. So, but either way, no matter who starts in midfield, Jones has to be in there for me, even if that's at the expense of McAllister or whatever the manager decides to do. I want to see Curtis Jones in there. Now I'm going to move into the forward line now and start on the left-hand side, where I've also made a change and I've put Florian Wirtz in there instead, of Cody Gakpo. I think Gakpo, obviously, he hits the post 3 times against United. He scores against Chelsea. He scored in the international break. And I've got this feeling that he's not playing particularly well at the moment. He's not linking up well with Kerkez. I just don't think sometimes the games are going for him. And so I think that left-hand side is up for grabs a little bit. Now, Engamoa, it seems I would like to see more of him. If the manager's putting him in the squad as a genuine option, then I think he should be using him, but he's not at the moment. So if you're going to make a change there and it's not going to be Engamoa, who I would love to see, but I don't feel he's going to be there, then I think Wirtz. And I think for Wirtz as well, get him out of that number 10 where it's too tight, he's struggling to make it work. Get him on the left where he can, if he's going to drift from the left, that's absolutely fine. You don't lose too much in terms of your structure because Liverpool are playing with a winger who is very advanced on that left-hand side anyway. So, let him drift, and he's drifting off the left-hand side. If you start him in the 10 and he drifts, you lose a bit of defensive structure in transition. When you lose the ball, you're in a bit of trouble. And also, so that kind of negates that if it starts there. But also, when he gets the ball in possession, he can build up pace running inside from the left-hand side, which gets players moving backwards. It starts to panic defences. And I think he's not being able to build up that speed in the middle because it's too congested. So I would love to see him off the left-hand side. And for me, that's kind of one of the major solutions I'd like to see to Liverpool's problems going forward consistently, along with Jones playing, which I think has to happen more. I wouldn't mind seeing Wirtz off the left-hand side. I think it would just solidify things, both those. It would add progression. It would just help Liverpool out in a lot of the problems that we're seeing so far. So those are 2 of the changes I really would like to see. But I would like to see them not just for this game, but consistently going forward. And I'm going to move on to the right-hand side on attack now. And as I say, this is kind of a mix between what I want to see, but also what I expect the manager to do. And I would not be against seeing Federico Chiesa here, but let's be honest, the manager's shown no inclination to do that. I don't think we will be seeing him in this one from the start, and so it probably will be Mo Salah. Now, again, what I would say on this is you can't go over the top in your criticism of Salah for me and saying, he's completely useless, he's gone now, he's finished, because how many dissenting voices were there out there talking about the fact that he was going to get that new contract over the summer? I'd say 1% of the Liverpool fan base was against it, if even that. I didn't really see any of that. So, you can't now suddenly be convinced that they've made a complete mistake by extending his contract and that he'll never play well again because his legs have completely gone. I think that's too much flip-flopping and not sticking to your guns, really. So I would like to see Mo Salah. It's not that I would like to see him. I probably prefer to see Chiesa, but I still hold a belief that Salah can sort this out and it's not going to be like this forever. So, I'm not against the manager playing him in the sense that I do think he'll get it right. I don't think he's completely finished as a player. And, if he keeps getting the chances as he has in the last couple of games, the problem hasn't been not getting the ball to him this time. It's been he's wasting chances. Surely that will turn. Surely you don't lose that ability to put the ball in the back of the net. Even if your legs are going, that ability to hit the back of the net, you should see strikers retain that until much later in the career. So hopefully he can keep that going. Hopefully he gets a couple of goals in this one, gets his confidence back, and then we see the best of Mo Salah going forward from this point. And so that leaves just the centre forward role, and I think this is an obvious pick, really. It's Hugo Ekitike. You've got to give him opportunities to start games. It was Isak on Sunday. For me, it should be Ekitike in this one. He knows Frankfurt, he knows the Bundesliga, he knows Bundesliga teams, so should be very much in his comfort zone. And you have to say, actually, it's felt a little bit harsh whenever he's been dropped for Isak because he has been the better of the 2 players so far. So again, if he plays in this one, he scores again. If he plays well, he's probably making a case to keep his place for the Premier League game as well that comes up after this in Brentford. So I would really like to see Ekitike. And again, we talk about Liverpool's problems in build-up. I think he's been better than Isak in terms of dropping into that kind of, okay, it's not deep enough to really massively help build up, but he's into the kind of number 10 positions. He's moving defenders around. He's creating space for others. And he looks really comfortable when he takes it in deep positions and then turns. And so you've just got to have multiple ways of getting up the pitch, really. And I think Ekitike offers one of those. So, he deserves to start at the end of the day. And as I say, that's not being overly harsh on Isak, but I just think Ekitike is playing well. I think the rotation basis, you have to start him anyway. But maybe, as I say, if he plays well here, he maybe makes a case to keep his place in the team when the weekend comes around. But we will see. So anyway, that is my starting 11 against Eintracht Frankfurt. Really interested to hear what you guys think about all that. Have I got that completely wrong? Is there any other changes you would make? What would you do about the Gravenberch situation? Maybe you go down a different route. Do let me know all your thoughts on that. And as usual, I can ask if you can like and subscribe. I would massively appreciate it. Of course, I will be back after the Eintracht Frankfurt game to discuss that in my post-match reaction. And hopefully we're talking about a win, because this 4 defeats on the bounce is a little bit depressing, isn't it? Let's be honest.